On Mina's birthday, Peter, Mina's brother, wanted to make it extraordinary. With months of planning and saving, he managed to book first-class tickets for them both on a flight to Los Angeles. The airport buzzed with the usual hustle and bustle of travelers. Peter and Mina made their way through the crowd of passengers to the first-class lounge, and after a while, they arrived and entered the lounge. The ambience here was Peteredly different, quiet, sophisticated, and adorned with plush seating that invited comfort. Mina, who had never flown first class before, couldn't hide her delight. She marveled at the spacious seats, the personalized service, and the elegant decor. Peter, watching her face light up, felt a wave of satisfaction. As the time for boarding approached, they joined the line for first-class passengers. The air was filled with the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the low hum of boarding announcements. Once on the plane, they were greeted by the flight attendants, who ushered them to their luxurious seats near the front. The space was immaculate, with wide reclining seats, plush pillows, and a menu that promised a culinary experience. Mina ran her fingers over the smooth leather armrests, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Peter leaned back, content to let her enjoy every moment of this rare. The siblings settled in, each absorbed in their thoughts. Mina flipped through the in-flight magazine, her mind already wandering to the adventures awaiting them in Los Angeles. Peter, however, found himself observing the other passengers boarding the plane. Just then, he saw a tall figure passing through the first-class compartment and quietly walking toward the economy section. The man is tall and has an unassuming air, is dressed simply in a black jacket and jeans, and carries a backpack. Peter felt that this figure was very familiar, and as the man passed him, Peter had clicked. That is Sam Elliot. Peter nudged Mina, whispering excitedly. Mina's head snapped around, and her eyes followed Peter's subtle nod. "No way," she breathed. "That's him?" Peter and Mina exchanged glances, both astonished and impressed. Here was a man who could easily afford first-class seats, yet he chose to sit in the economy and took his place among the other passengers, blending in effortlessly. "Why isn't he in first class?" Mina wondered aloud. Her tone wasn't one of disbelief, but of admiration. Peter shrugged, but felt the same sense of awe. It wasn't every day you saw a celebrity, especially one with the reputation of Sam Elliot, choosing humility over privilege. The image stuck with him, a subtle but profound display of character that contrasted sharply with the usual stereotypes of fame. An idea began to form in Peter's mind, growing stronger with each passing second. This was more than a rare encounter. It was an opportunity to show his respect for someone who lived with integrity. This prompted him to do something. "What if I give him my seat?" he said suddenly, turning to Mina. Mina was surprised. "You're giving up your first-class seat? For him?" Peter nodded, his eyes calm but determined. "Think about it. Mina, he's inspired us so much. He wouldn't be looking forward to it. But this is our way of acknowledging him and what he stands for." Mina hesitated, her initial surprise softening into a thoughtful look. "You want to do this?" she asked. "I thought this was just for us." "That's right." Peter smiled softly. "It's okay. Mina, it doesn't take away from our experience. We'll still have a trip together. We'll still have memorable moments. But I believe this will make our whole trip more special." Finally, Mina's smile appeared on her lips, and nodding in agreement, "Okay," she replied, her voice soft. Peter nodded, took a deep breath, and stood. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest as he stepped into the aisle. The hallway seemed to stretch longer, and the curious eyes of the other passengers felt like small headlights on him. Finally, He stopped in front of Sam's row. The actor looked up, his face polite, but also a little surprised. Peter smiled slightly, preparing to make his offer. The actor looked up, meeting Peter's eyes with a polite and questioning expression. "Excuse me, Mr. Sam," Peter began, his voice steady despite the nerves bubbling inside him. "I just wanted to say, it's an honor to see you here. My sister and I have always admired you. You're a real inspiration." Sam smiled modestly. "Thank you." Peter took a deep breath, lunging forward. "Would you like to sit in my seat? It's in first class." Sam's eyes widened in surprise. "That's a generous offer," and he said, his voice sincere. "I'm fine sitting here." Peter hesitated but pressed gently. "I understand, but it would mean a lot to me and my sister if you would accept. We would be honored if you sat in my seat." For a moment, Sam was deeply moved. He saw the sincerity in Petet's gestures and words. Then he chuckled softly, nodding. "Okay, I'll accept. You're a nice guy. Thank you very much." As Peter stepped into the economy-class cabin, the bustling energy of the space enveloped him. Unlike the serene and spacious first-class section he had left behind, this area was alive with chatter, the rustling of bags, and the steady hum of the plane's engines. He carefully navigated through the narrow aisle, carrying his belongings and scanning the overhead compartments for a place to stow his carry-on. It was a stark contrast to the luxurious comfort he had relinquished. But Peter didn't mind. After all, he had just given up his seat to none other than Sam Elliot, an act of admiration and respect he considered entirely worth it. When you get to your seat, Peter quickly settles in, placing his carry-on bag under the seat in front of him. As he adjusted the belt around his waist, a flight attendant approached him with a kind but slightly apologetic expression. "Excuse me, sir," she began, leaning slightly forward to speak over the background noise. "I just noticed you've moved seats. I'll need to confirm your checked baggage details." Peter blinked, momentarily caught off guard. "Oh, yes, I moved down from first class," he explained, gesturing towards the front of the plane. He said, trying to keep his voice steady, "I was settled up there. I only moved because I gave up my seat for someone else." The flight attendant nodded understandingly, but tapped on her tablet with a furrowed brow. "I understand, sir. But there's an additional baggage fee when passengers move between classes due to different ticketing policies. Since economy class has stricter weight allowances, there's a surcharge for your checked luggage." And he said, trying to appeal to reason, "I just thought, given these circumstances, are there any exceptions here?" The flight attendant's expression didn't falter. She said, "I can't override the system. The rules are the same for everyone." Peter instinctively searched his pockets for his wallet, but found nothing. He suddenly remembered the wallet he had stuffed into his sister Mina's pocket while boarding the plane. And now she was still in first class. I don't have my wallet with me," Peter stammered, feeling a wave of heat rise to his cheeks. The passengers in nearby seats had begun to take notice, their conversations quieting as they observed the situation. The flight attendant's polite demeanor remained unchanged, though Peter could sense the tension in her voice. "I understand, sir, but unfortunately, the airline requires payment before we can proceed." Peter glanced around helplessly. The seats beside him were occupied by strangers, perhaps uncomfortable with the unfolding scene. His heart pounded as he realized the precariousness of his situation. Mina was too far away, and the idea of disrupting the entire first-class cabin to retrieve his wallet was unthinkable. Just as the pressure mounted to an almost unbearable degree, a calm, familiar voice cut through tension. "Is there a problem here?" Peter turned his head sharply to see Sam Elliot standing in the aisle. His presence was drawing the attention of passengers and staff alike. The flight attendant straightened slightly, her professional demeanor intact. "Mr. Sam, this passenger has encountered an issue with the baggage surcharge after changing seats." Sam's gaze shifted to Peter, his brow furrowing in quiet understanding. Without hesitation, he reached into his back pocket and pulled out a sleek leather wallet. "I'll pay for him," and he said, his voice steady and reassuring. Peter's eyes widened. No, you don't have to." Sam held up a hand to stop him, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "It's no trouble at all. You gave up your seat for me. This is the least I can do." The flight attendant hesitated for a moment, clearly caught off guard by the gesture, before nodding and processing the payment as Sam handed over the money. A ripple of murmurs spread through the cabin. Passengers whispered in hushed tones, some craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the unfolding moment. "Thank you so much," and he managed to say, his voice thick with emotion. Peter felt the weight of the moment settle into his chest as he met Sam's gaze. The actor's easy demeanor and quiet act of kindness resonated deeply, not just with Peter, but with everyone in the vicinity. The murmurs from nearby passengers were filled with admiration, and a few even began clapping softly, though the applause quickly faded into respectful silence. As Sam returned to his seat, Peter sat back, trying to process everything that had just happened. His mind was racing. He had heard stories about Sam Elliot, about his generosity and humility, but witnessing it firsthand was something else entirely. It had been a whirlwind for a few minutes, and the journey had only just begun. The plane began to take off. The flight attendants continued their routines, and the cabin returned to its usual hum. Peter could hear snippets of conversation around him, some about unexpected celebrity encounters, others about trivial things like destinations, connecting flights, or weekend plans. He leaned back and rested his head against the seat for a moment to regain his composure. About an hour later, Peter sensed a figure walking down the aisle toward him. Sam approached him and said, "Can I sit down for a moment?" And the actor asked, pointing to the empty seat next to Peter. "Of course," and Peter replied, still a little overwhelmed. Sam sat down, looking thoughtful. "I just wanted to say thank you again. What you did back there, it meant a lot. It's not easy for anyone to give up their seat, especially in first class." Peter shook his head. "Nothing. I should thank you for what you just did. I'm a big fan of yours, and your films have inspired me a lot." As Peter continued, Sam nodded, his face lighting up. "Thanks. So, which of my films is your favorite?" he asked, genuinely curious. Peter chuckled. "Tombstone. Your performance in it was memorable. I've watched it over and over again, and it was a part of my childhood." Sam nodded, his expression turning thoughtful. Tombstone. That was a memorable film. Thank you. I love playing complex characters. It helps me express a lot of emotions. That's part of the reason I do this." Peter felt a little more comfortable talking to Sam. "You know, I've always found your roles to be very real. There's a deep truth to them that not everyone can convey through the screen." Sam smiled, nodding in appreciation. "That's what I've always aimed for." The two sat in silence for a moment, letting the words echo in the quiet space of the plane cabin. Sam broke the silence with another question. "So, Peter, what are you doing now?" Peter chuckled. "I'm a writer. I write little stories about life." Sam looked at Peter with interest. "A writer? It's an interesting job." Peter nodded, feeling a little proud to talk about his work. "Yes, I write about everyday stories, moments that people can ignore, but contain profound values. I think everyone in life has a story to tell. They just don't know how to share it." Sam looked at Peter, his expression a little thoughtful. "Then you must have a lot of stories from encounters like today." right? Peter smiled, then nodded. Yes, sometimes life puts us in situations we don't expect, and that's when the stories begin. For example, meeting you here. Sam laughed loudly, his eyes shining. I've learned a lot from chance encounters like this too. Everyone has their own story and a different life process, and if we listen, we can learn many valuable things. Peter looked at Sam, feeling the sincerity in his words. Yes, I always believe that small stories can change the way we see the world. Just like the characters in your movies. They always have a story, a reason to fight, to change. Peter and Sam continued to talk, gradually talking about different stories in life, from movies to personal experiences. Though neither said it, they both felt like they had had a rare encounter, a moment that was not only memorable, but also a real connection between strangers in a rushed world, and how simple acts of kindness can ripple outward in ways he could never have predicted. A moment later, the announcement that the flight was coming to an end rang out. Peter looked out the window, then back at Sam, realizing that time had passed more quickly than he had thought. We must be almost there, Peter said. Sam nodded, his eyes still slightly thoughtful. Yes, I am. This has been a very interesting flight. Thank you so much for this conversation. I don't think I'll ever meet someone who thinks as much about life as you do. I'll remember what we talked about. Peter smiled, feeling like he had just shared a special moment with someone who truly understood him. Thank you, Sam. It's been an honor to talk to someone I admire. I'll always remember this trip. He stood up, shaking Sam's hand firmly. Sam smiled broadly, taking Peter's hand. Good luck with your stories, Peter. Peter responded, feeling a warm joy. I wish you good health and always find great roles. As Sam left his seat, Peter sat back, feeling like he had just gone through a long journey, not only in terms of distance, but also in terms of emotions. On that plane, Peter learned many valuable lessons, not only about Sam Elliot's humility, but also about the profound values of life that we sometimes easily overlook in our daily lives. Through the very simple and humble actions of Sam Elliot, it can be seen that fame and success are not the factors that determine the value of a person. No matter who you are, the most important thing is how you treat people. Sharing the story between Sam and Peter helped us realize that, in this hurried world, we don't always need to look for great things. Sometimes, the kindest acts come from simple things. Have you ever dared to do an act of kindness, even though it might cost you a little personal gain? Are you willing to give something precious of yourself, just so that others can feel the value of kindness? We don't have to be famous to make a difference. Every day, there are opportunities to do something kind around us. Let's bring a little joy or warmth to this world together. Small moments of kindness are the biggest stories we can share.